Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Embers. Today we're going to be covering Natural Energy, Part 2. Let me just enter in here and do a brief recap. For those that don't recall, first episode, we dealt with natural energy and how to harvest ember crystals from the, underneath bedrock, so to speak, as well as some of the basics on how to identify things and use some of your basics in Embers. And what this video is going to cover, as you may already know, is Natural Energy Part 2, which I broke up into two sections. Namely, if you go into your Ancient Codex here, then you can see all these items were covered except for Ember Activator and Pressure Refinery. I'm going to be going over those, the pluses and minuses of each, as well as how to maximize your efforts. But before we do so, there's a little something that isn't in the Ancient Codex that I think is rather important, and that's an Ember Lantern. This little guy here is actually quite nice. There it is, and it's made simple with just some an iron plate, ember shard, and an iron ingot. We'll get you 4 of these little guys, and they are similar to torches, but a lot more decorative, and well, they just look really, really nice. Just thought I'd mention that real briefly before we jump in. So let's get into this. Here we go. Now, don't worry, I've got a lot of stuff set up in here, mostly just for display. You're only ever probably going to need one of these setups, and that's about it. So let's start off. We've got the Ember Activator, which is quite an impressive item in itself. Now, the recipe is a bunch of copper, a couple iron plates, and a furnace. Now, what we're comparing it to is a Pressure Refinery. Pressure Refinery's recipe is actually a little bit more expensive, as you've got a block of copper plus 3 more, 2 iron, and a furnace, but it also requires an extra material to function. The Ember Activator requires ember to function. The Pressure Refinery requires ember and water to function, and is much more beneficial. The amount of water that it requires is very minimal, and in fact you could probably just do manual adding it in. It's not that bad, but yeah, don't forget I'm in creative mode, so I will be spawning things in, and I have access to that such information. Now, if I look on the ember gauge here, which I introduced you to on the first episode, this will tell you how much ember, and that is the actual amount of processed fuel that you will receive from your ember crystals. Now, in each of the chests in this room, I currently have one type of ember, and that is an ember shard, which its default value is 400 ember fuel. Your ember crystal, which is much bigger, if you look here, they're a little bit bigger than the other guys, it is the equivalent to 2200 ember fuel. And that's just an example of how this is going to work. So if I turn this on, it will take the item pump, will pump the ember crystal into the Ember Activator, and it should give me a certain result here. Once it has received it, there we go, 400 ember fuel. So you can see here it lit up. We have the little light above. This one is not functioning as of yet. Now, the Pressure Refinery works similar, but not quite the same in that it requires water. Now, I am in creative, so I can just keep on pouring this in here until the tank is full. You don't have to have a full tank. You only ever need like just a bit of water in there to work. It doesn't use much water at all. So let me turn this on, and that will actually get that going. And if I so desire, I could grab one of these here, a fluid gauge, pop that on the front here, and you can see that it currently has 8 buckets of water inside. And our fluid vessel now is down to, what is it, 6 buckets, something like that. I don't know. I didn't put in the proper amount. I just kept on bucketing it in. But anyway, and also the pipes will store a certain amount of the water as well. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. It doesn't use up much in its processing of the material. But you can see here it has an ember shard. This one already has been used. Let's flick this one on here. You'll see it light up as well, and the amount of ember that you get is 600, which is your default value for most mundane items with a Pressure Refinery. So 600 versus 400. Already, just adding a bit of water, a few extra pipes, you are good to go. And if I break this, you can see it didn't really use much water at all. Let me come back over here, and you can see it didn't even use any water for that process because it was so small. It's going to last you quite a while, so you don't really need to worry too much about it. Now, if you go in your Ancient Codex and you look up, all about the Ember activator, it will tell you all sorts of stuff about it. And I recommend you actually skip past it and just go straight to the pressure refinery, because it's going to make your Ember crystals last much longer. And it will tell you in there most of what I have already told you just now. I've demonstrated it more visually. Now, this is where I did a little bit of testing. So to start off with, it also says that you need to have the pressure refinery surrounded by a certain kind of material, namely flames or lava or something hot like that surrounding it, and therefore it should function in a similar manner to increase its ability. Now in this chest here, as before, I have an Ember shard. And I also, of course, have my water. Now let's turn those both on, and that should fill this up. You can see the water's full. The Ember is now got 600 in there, which is the same as before. So with this, I'm just demonstrating that adding flame around underneath, because yes, I currently have a piece of archaic tile underneath it. It doesn't really matter what is underneath it in this demonstration. Just know that it is currently not actually changing anything. So adding heat to the nothing that is underneath will make no difference. Now, if I actually switch that out for something that is more conductive, let's say a bit of, what do I have here? Aluminum. I just messed that up. Let me actually grab a flint and tinder and fix that. There we go. Now if I do that, add in another piece of Ember, which I should have some here. Let's toss that one piece in. It goes from 400 to a really big decimal point. But you can see that it drastically increased. And that is not because of the just the fire. So if I didn't have the fire in here and some kind of conductive material, it would not necessarily be giving me such a huge yield off of this. Now, let me get into a little something else. You can use fire or lava, and they actually will result in the same increase, provided that the block underneath is conductive material. Now this, of course, is archaic tile as well. I have the same Ember shard. Click that, click the water, and you'll see, boom, Ember pops up 600. Same as usual. So once again, you need to have a conductive piece of metal underneath. And if I switch this aluminum block out, add in that one extra piece of, there we go, Ember shard, you can see it jumps up to the same 1739. It's pretty impressive there. Nothing to sniff at. But if you want to maximize the amount of space that you can obtain from this and still get the results that you're looking for, you can actually minimize the space. So you don't have to have lava on all all tiles around it. You just need to have it surrounding the block that the pressure refinery is sitting on. So if I do it like this, then it will make it much simpler. So here, actually, let me remove that. It'll just be lava for now. We'll flick this on, flick that on, and it'll give you the 600 like usual. Put this conductive metal on underneath. Put that in place, and it should work in just the same way. 1739 plus decimal point, 1739 plus decimal point. And of course, everything is functioning as before. So this is just me showing you that all you need is 4 blocks or 4 items on the side of the block underneath needs to be heated. It doesn't have to be surrounding the pressure refinery, just the block that it's sitting on, plus the block has to be conductive. Now, conductive materials. Just about everything that you put underneath it, just about, if it can stand up to lava or fire, will give it a default of 1.5 times your normal value. And like I said, your Ember shards will give you 400. Your Ember crystals will give you 2200 by default. So if you just use, like under here, I have an archaic tile. Let's actually get rid of this extra stuff here that I don't need anymore. So I've got an archaic tile underneath. So that's just a mundane item. Plus mithril or dawnstone or even some metals that are not discussed in here may give you a default value, but it will still be better than your activator down there, which will just give you your 400. And that's what I'm basing our control group off of here. So with this, you'll get 600 or 3300 with mithril, dawnstone, or any mundane blocks. Now, as before, just to demonstrate that, turn those on, boom, lights up 600, which is, 1.5 times 400, or 1.5 times. So If I go to more conductive metals, which is what these three here are going to be all about, then it will give you much better results, much better results. In the end, it'll be even better. So iron, lead, and bronze is the next tier. I'm going to call this tier 2 because tier 1 materials are just mundane or not conductive enough. Dawnstone and mithril are not considered conductive. So iron, lead, and bronze. Now, not all these materials that I'm going to demonstrate are in this pack, in this mod. This mod covers a few extra materials and metals, and therefore if you have a mod pack that you're playing that supports these metals, then yes, they will function. You may find these in this mod, but they may not actually have any other material use besides just making some weapons or ingots or something like that. So this can be useful in a mod pack, very minimal in the mod by itself. So now that I've given that disclaimer, iron, lead, and bronze will give you 2.625 times the yield value, which is going to be, well, a little bit more than 2.5 times. So you're going to get 1,050 instead of 400, and 5,775 instead of 2,200 for these values. Now, there may be some decimal values that are tiny amounts off of this, but as before, I'm going to turn those on, lights up, and there you go, 1050. Just like that. And that currently it is sitting on a bronze block. There we go. I just center clicked it so that I can duplicate it in creative mode. You can see it is on bronze. If it was iron or lead, it would produce the same exact item. All right, on to tier 3. Now this is a little bit better than the other. This is 2.625. This is 2.85. Nickel, tin, and aluminum. Any one of those three needs to be underneath your pressure refinery in order to get these better results. Once again, flick these levers, and we get 1139, 0.9999, etc. I'm rounding on this one. It should be about 2.85. I'm not going to go into any more decimal points than that, but 2.85 will get you 1140 as opposed to 1050, as opposed to 600, as opposed to the base value of 400. So already you're getting almost 3 times as much just by putting aluminum, tin, or nickel. Now these ones here are not standard in the pack, so you're in the mod. So these are non-standard materials. You're probably going to skip over them and instead go with like iron, lead, or the best one, which in this case is going to be copper, silver, gold, or in a pack circumstance, electrum. I personally recommend whatever you have your most common of, which is usually going to be copper or iron. Iron would be a good start if you're having trouble finding some copper, but otherwise copper is really good. Silver, this gives you a good use for silver. I mean, it's just one block, and if ever you need it, you can always break it. You just pick up the lava around it or put out the fires if you have those, and it will give you your results as you need. Now in this case, you'll get 3 times. So 400 being the base value from an Ember activator. Then I click this lever here, and it lights up 1200. So you get 3 times the value out of a pressure refinery, minimal water, a few extra materials, and overall you could triple your power generation for the entire mod of Embers. So next up, what we're going to be covering is a whole lot of how to make, like duplicate metals, how to set up your fuel system so that it can process, be stored, as well as power a lot of really cool machines. We're really going to be getting into it soon. So I hope you'll join me next time. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And until next time, folks, I'll see ya.